Hey, how's it going? Hey, what's up, guys? Ghost Bear Games here. Hope you all are doing well and having an awesome day today. I guess welcome to my official face reveal. I wasn't planning to do any of these anytime soon, but with the release of Nightfall these past few days, I was just too excited and I felt like writing an article and doing a video where you couldn't really see my face just wouldn't fully just convey my excitement for this set. I'm just so excited for MetaZoo's release of Nightfall, which technically isn't going to be happening until October 22nd, but with New York Comic Con kicking off just a couple days ago, we've just had so many amazing spoilers hitting just the secondary market and Discord that I had to just kind of put all of my plans on hold and get this video out because there's so many good cards coming out and just so many beasties that I feel like are going to be a huge powerhouse that are either going to shake up the meta or just be some kind of threat on the battlefield in casual play. And I wanted to cover them, and I didn't feel like the article that I wrote would really just get that across in print. So I figured, let's make a video, let's get our face out there and get stuff going. So anyway, without further ado, hi, my name's Isaac. I'm the face and personality behind Ghost Bear Games. Nice to officially meet you all, and without further ado, let's get into these Nightfall spoilers. Kicking things off at number 6, we have one of the most popular chase cards in the set that people have been fiending for since the release of the 2020 Halloween promos, Headless Horseman. Now, some of you might be surprised that he's technically at the bottom of our list, but Nightfall has just given us so many top contenders that, well, somebody had to wind up in last place. And honestly, that's not a bad thing considering there's 163 cards in the entire Nightfall set. Now, starting off with the basics that makes this guy such a threat, he has the Spirit trait, which makes him unable to be targeted by attacks, which when coupled with that tanky 100 life points, will make removing him from the battlefield quite the challenge without a Death Beam or Alaskan Vortex on hand. Next, we have his Fear trait, which is really great for slowing down your opponent, as he can bounce their powerful beasties that you might have trouble dealing with otherwise. And then we have the so juicy double terror bonuses for his attack, Decapitating Revenge, which when paired with his ability Decapitated Mimicry, we have one extra spicy combo I'd like 2 orders of, please. Now honestly, Decapitated Mimicry would be good enough on its own alongside a vanilla attack, but the fact that Decapitating Revenge gives you 2 powerful abilities instead of 1 when taking out your opponent's beastie, well, that's just plain evil. Being able to copy attacks and abilities in MetaZoo can be pretty powerful, especially once you see the ones on beasties we have coming up in this list. I do kind of wish that you could copy powers as well, but I guess that would be a little bit too overpowered, so I'll just take what I can get. Besides, Headless Horseman's attacks effect more than makes up for that slight criticism. After all, it lets you hold your opponent's beasties hostage, which is especially handy against decks using Chapter, which is another word for your hand, Limbo, Cemetery, and Afterlife Recursion. Next up, swooping in at number 5, we have a beastie I'm especially excited about because it's the first flying earth type. The more cards that are revealed, I swear, just the more I feel like Nightfall is fleshing out just every type where it needs it. After all, up until this point, one of Earth's weaknesses has been an inability to bring the fight to flying beasties. This is because in MetaZoo, flying beasties can only be attacked by other flying beasties, and Earth hasn't had any beasties that, well, can fly. Now, I don't think that Frank Shaw's Gargoyle will really be the big, end-all solution for Earth, since you can only have one of these guys in your spellbook, and he unfortunately suffers from the same high contracting costs that most Earth beasties have been plagued with. But hey, at least now Earth has a chance, and it's on a wicked cool Gargoyle. Now, aside from having flight, this guy also comes bearing the trait Stone Skin, which will protect him from damage outside of combat. And his attacks get a nice terror boost from the city and stars, which are 2 of the easiest environments to battle in, so most likely you'll be able to just leave those pages in your side deck instead of including your main deck. Speaking of attacks, we have to talk about the powerhouse that is his attack, Skyscraper Strike. I mean, the 20 base damage is certainly nothing to get excited about, even with the scared effect bonus, but the fact that it doubles as a potential board wipe when dealing 10 damage to all of your opponent's pages, which, by the way, that's beasties and artifacts, not just beasties, well, suddenly the 20 base damage seems like more of an added bonus instead of a disappointment, right? This is because that 10 damage will knock out almost any token your opponent can summon to the battlefield, especially those dingbells which have been wreaking havoc in the competitive scene basically since MetaZoo took off several months ago. And if you pair up that attack with a couple lightning in bottles, just imagine all the fun you can have as you watch one of your lone beasties mow down your opponent's entire army. And then last, but most certainly not least about this guy, his arena ability prevents him from accruing status effect indicators, which means that he can't be affected by effects like burn, poison, sleep, frozen, etc., which is super, super powerful in MetaZoo. I'm so excited with just all of these amazing upgrades that Earth is getting in Nightfall, and I really feel like cards like this, like Frank Shaw's Gargoyle and Murfreesboro Mud Monster, are just potentially going to give Earth that fight that they've been needing, this entire time. That is, as long as they aren't going up against this next beastie, who I was especially excited to see from the very beginning just because of the absolutely stunning artwork by Poncho. I mean, just look at those intensely deep blues and crazy tentacles surrounding that massive neon green eyeball. It might just be because I'm a huge fan of sea creatures like the Kraken already, but believe it or not, the Oklahoma Octopus does have more to offer than what meets the eye. Pun 110% intended. He has Fleet, which allows him to come out swinging the moment he hits the battlefield, and having double regen, which you can see by those two little plus signs on his ribbon, it means that he'll be recovering 20 life points at the end of each turn, which also includes your opponent's turns. Speaking of life points, if you take a look at his Terra bonus, not only does his attack gain an extra 20 when you have an Island Terror out, but his life points also gain an additional 20 as well, which gives you this big, beefy 120 life point octopus that can deal out 70 damage with his attacks. Oh, and speaking of his attacks, did I mention that his attack also poisons the beastie or caster that it targets with 3 poison indicators? Poison is illustrated by that tiny little mushroom next to the name of his attack, and the way that poison works is that at the end of each turn, the afflicted beastie or caster loses 10 life points times the number of remaining poison indicators. So basically with this guy, beasties and casters that are poisoned by him will automatically lose 30 life points at the end of the first turn. Pretty nuts. Now, if all that wasn't intimidating enough, you don't even need to actually summon this beastie at all for it to be a threat. In fact, you have the option to contract him and then immediately yeet him into the afterlife to activate his ability, which lets you create 8, that's right, 8 tentacle tokens with Fleet. I would just absolutely love to end a game by leading my opponent to believe I'm summoning this massive octopus, and instead I replace him with this gang of disembodied tentacles ready to throw arms. Just, oh, the joys I will have. But, oh, the joys I will miss when this next beastie rolls into the battlefield, unless, of course, he happens to be on my side, of course. For being the king of chill, Jack Frost brings none of it with his Terror Destruction, Solid Attack, and insane 15 Frozen Indicator count. For just 5 Frost Aura, 3 if it's winter, you can summon this flying 60 life point beastie that immediately destroys all non-winter and non-snowing terror in the battlefield when contracted. With his spirit trait making him unable to be targeted by attacks and nipping at your nose, dealing 50 damage minimum, we've got one feisty little beastie that honestly could be a flame type when you look at his Terror Destruction. Oh, and don't think I forgot about that Frozen Indicator count on his attack, especially with the reveal of a new spell coming in Nightfall, which lets you deal 25 damage times the number of Frozen Indicators on a page. And this is all for just 1 Frost Aura. For 1 Frost Aura, Frostbite lets you follow up this guy's attack, dealing 375 damage in just 1 icy swoop. Honestly, Frost really didn't need any more assistance with powerhouse beasties like Babe the Blue Ox, Wahila, and Tizaruk already tearing up the tundra, but as somebody who has a special place in their heart for this type, because Alpha Iceman Tribal was my very first deck that I played, I honestly can't say I'm upset with this latest addition to the Frost fam. And now, we've come to our top 2 beasties, the 2 voted most likely to leave a path of destruction whenever they grace a battlefield with their presence. First up, in the number 2 slot, we have the Big Cheese, the head honcho, the Big Kahuna, one of the most hyped up cards in the entire set, Wendigo! This card was one of the first artworks revealed for Nightfall, and I've been absolutely in love with it ever since. I love the reference to Cubone's introductory card from the Pokemon Jungle series, and I really can't wait to see how the moon and the night sky just look all foiled out and covered in those just sparkling foil stars. But like another card I mentioned previously, this beastie has a lot more going for it than just those beautiful appearances. In fact, the synergy between its arena ability and devour attack is honestly a work of art in itself. If you're unfamiliar with the trait Fear, which is illustrated by that tiny little monster face on his black ribbon, the way it works is that when a beastie with this trait is contracted, the owner targets their opponent's beastie and flips a coin. If heads, the beastie that was targeted returns to its owner's hand, which is also referred to as a chapter in MetaZoo. And if tails, normally nothing would happen. However, in this case, Wendigo's arena ability allows him to awaken and attack if the coin toss results in tails, even if he's already attacked that turn, which is absolutely nuts. When he then attacks with Devour, if he destroys a beastie, he's allowed to activate Fear once again, which starts the cycle back over until the coin either lands on heads, or he stops filling up your opponent's limbo. Now, as much as I wish you could have a whole squad of Wendigo out just cracking all kinds of coin flip shenanigans, I can totally understand why casters are only allowed one of these per spellbook, especially when taking into consideration the 3 Dark Aura cost, which is pretty cheap after looking at everything Wendigo is able to do. I mean, after everything I've discussed, this guy also has 2 Terra boosts for his attack, and comes packing 75 life points, which, if taken damage, he'll be recovering at the end of every turn thanks to his regen trait. But even with everything that Wendigo brings to the table, in the end, he's no match for our number 1 winner, who is actually the beastie I made room for after originally planning to make this a top 5 list. After all, Wendigo is definitely going to be a menace on the battlefield, but if he manages to do damage to you directly, at least you can still potentially get up and keep going again just fine. Well, maybe just fine. However, this next beastie can send you to an early grave if he manages to get you with just 1 touch. The all-powerful Grim Reaper. Now, before I get into this card, let me just say I don't think by any means that this beastie is competitive. I mean, it'll cost you 9 Dark Aura, which is one of the steepest casting costs in MetaZoo, if just not the most expensive overall, and you can only use Dark Aura pages to cast it, so no cheating with Aurifacts or beasties that use Convert. However, if you do manage to get this guy on the battlefield, your opponent might want to scribble down their last words while they still have a chance, especially because once it's entered the battlefield, it will be nearly impossible for your opponent to get rid of due to that wall of traits lining its ribbon. I mean, we've got Immortal, which means that he'll survive even when its life points hit 0. He's a Spirit, which means that he can't be the target of attacks, and he also has the Destroyer trait, which means that he automatically kills any or artifact that it attacks. And even if your opponent does find some means to destroy it, Grim Reaper can easily be contracted, or I guess recontracted, from Limbo, Cemetery, or Afterlife to start the process all over again. I absolutely love how Grim Reaper, the card truly has control over all areas of the field, which is just so true to the lore. I absolutely love it. Such a good idea. Speaking of the lore, we have his attack, The End, which is just such a fitting title considering that if it manages to damage a caster, it can cause them to straight up lose the game. Really, really makes me wish that it had the unblockable trait to really drive his attack home, but I guess that would just be a little bit too mean when you have cards like Luck Potion running around, so I guess I'll let it slide. What makes this attack so powerful is that, aside from Mothman, Grim Reaper is the only other beastie to have this kind of alternate win condition, but considering how lucky you have to get using Mothman's ability, it really is no competition when compared with the Grim Reapers. And if you think about it, that's probably how it should be. So, now that I've finished going through my list, what did you guys think? Do you agree with the order that I put all these beasties in? Do you feel that anybody was missing? Be sure to drop a comment below and let me know. And if you like these kind of videos, feel free to subscribe for more MetaZoo deck techs and gameplay information. And if you're interested in the written version of this video, be sure to check out the link to my blog below where I post MetaZoo gameplay articles on a weekly basis. If you have any suggestions for future content, feel free to drop a comment below or hit me up on Instagram, which I've also dropped in the description. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.